I've run a lot of marathons, which means I've made a load of mistakes, but the one thing I'm proud of is that I have never made the same mistake twice. That's actually a lie. I did once make the same mistake twice. And it was not a nice one. But I've learned from that mistake. But along with the mistakes, we picked up along the way some nuggety goodness, things that actually shouldn't probably work, but do work, and some things that should work and people should do, but they don't. And what we want to do, very simple, share them with you so you can get the best out of yourselves while we get the best out of ourselves, reaching for punchy goals in Berlin in September. Okay, here's what you need to know. I ran a sub 3 hour marathon on 3 runs per week, and I ran a 2:44 marathon on 4 runs per week, and I'm going to tell you in this video how I think that you can achieve faster times with less volume. But I'm also going to tell you how we ripped up the playbook when it came to structuring our marathon training in general, and I'm also going to tell you how we rethought our approach to diet when it came to our marathon training. But before I do all that, I'm going to touch very quickly on how we got faster before we even started marathon training, and it was as simple as this. Marathon training to us is an 18-week block, but even if you did 2 blocks per year, that's 36 weeks, so you've got a lot of time to play with. In the time before this marathon training block, we spent a lot of time doing a lot of strength work, lifting heavier weights, lifting more weights, preparing for high rocks, so we raced to high rocks, but also we went to the track and we did less overall volume, but we did faster stuff like VO2 max style sessions. So I'm talking 400 meter repeats, 200 repeats, a mixture, 4 3-2s, 1 minute repeats. Things like that, I feel like in this training block have made us a whole bunch faster already. So although not mind-blowingly different, I just wanted to give you some insight into what we did before we even started the marathon training. But we look at our 18-week marathon training block maybe a little bit differently. Indulge me, if you will, while I tell you a little story about my marathon training history, because I think it will enlighten you as to why we're doing things like we're doing, like this, and I think it will help at least give you permission to think differently about your training. Realised I need to put my shoes on. So let's start with London. 6 years ago, I ran my first marathon, London Marathon, but it did not go to plan, as in the training, the race, that went to plan. But in the training, I went way over the line. I pushed myself into a place of, first of all, tightness, then discomfort, then into injury, and that was it. Across the line, I had to take a significant time of training away, and I got lucky, if I'm honest, and I ran a 2:55 in my first ever major marathon. So Sibylle, I just thought you can run injured and still get a PB. Of course, that's not the case. Did I get a PB? Nowhere near. And I learnt my lessons. You can't run through those types of injuries. Fast forward to New York 3 years later. I ran a PB, but only 2 minutes, and I was expecting 7 minutes. Now this is simple. This is because I knew where the line was. I was getting better at managing it, but what I was doing was I was still teetering along the line, and sometimes I'd have to take a step back from my 5th run and get on the elliptical. So I was keeping myself in the game, I was prioritising consistency, but it was like this weird half consistency. And I went through that for a couple of cycles for New York and for Boston. Not running badly, but not running PBs, and it was frustrating me. Then step up Chicago. A new approach had to be in the mix. And so I decided, instead of that 5th run, instead of like painful Achilles all of the time, I'd take a step back. I'll get on the bike, and on Wednesday and on Monday, I'll cycle. I'll run 4 times a week, but I'll prioritise absolute consistency, staying in the game, no pain, quality sessions. You know what happened? 9-minute PB, 2:44. It's come together! Finally! And it's given me the hope, and it's given me the confidence that moving forwards for Berlin, I can maybe target something in the 2:30s if I get the training right. Mary, however, can absorb a lot more volume, so we're going to load her up a little bit more. Now that we're not teaching, now that this is our full-time job, we're going to give her a 5th and then her 6th run and see how she shakes out, because I still genuinely believe she's capable of a sub 3. But you know what the overall message is? I prioritise consistency over everything, because that's going to get you where you need to go when it comes to marathon training, not limping through it. So know where your line is and don't cross it. Another lesson it took me probably too long to learn is the being fixated on running marathon pace, like being specific about my marathon pace when it came to my training. Like we did track session after track session after track session, literally just doing reps at marathon pace. We don't do that anymore. So this is me at goal marathon pace now, but it's part of my warm-up. This is not the main set. The main set is lactate threshold. The warm-up is 2 kilometers easy, 2 kilometers marathon pace, just to remind my legs what it's all about. But I don't need to kind of flog this horse, and I'll tell you why when I finish this rep. Here's the thing about how I did look at marathon pace. I looked at it like, let's be specific, let's run it 10 times 1 kilometer at marathon pace, 1200, 1600s at marathon pace. But what I found was it wasn't challenging the body in any significant way, and it wasn't easy enough to work on my aerobic base. So therefore, I really wasn't gaining much from the sessions until I switched these sessions to lactate threshold for a start, like really punchy work. I'm just about to do 1200 repeats. That's hard work. And my body responded super, super well. So this is actually 9 weeks into Berlin training. Like, we've done 9 weeks already. 9 weeks to go, pretty much at the halfway point. And really, this week and last week are the first time I've touched marathon specific paced anything. So I generally do tempo, which is heart rate based and feel based. I do lactate threshold all the way through. I do easy runs. But you know what? There is a place for marathon specific work. It's just not as packed as it used to be for us, because I just found running much faster than marathon pace, running much easier than marathon pace, it unlocks so many new worlds that you'd be mad not to. The only problem is the intense sessions just hurt a whole lot more. Oh, you better believe we're coming back to the wall of explanation, which is a terrible name for what this is. But I want to demonstrate something really, really visibly to you. A few years ago, we stumbled upon a new concept, to us anyway, in terms of how we train. Traditionally, when we train for our marathons, in the last 6 weeks, if we include a 3-week taper, we then also include the 3-week build block, which would usually look something like this. You would come out of the last recovery week and you would build, build, build until your last long run is about 35 kilometers. But we were always tired, and things usually started to go wrong in that time. So just as chance would have it, I was coaching someone to Berlin Marathon. She was a 3:30 marathon runner, but we had an absolutely stonking training block, and she ended up running 2:59 and change. We looked back at everything that we'd done with her, and we realized about 6 weeks out before the marathon, we had loaded her up. Purely by chance, she'd been running like a multi-stage race where she'd run through the night, or done something crazy over a number of days where the volume 6 weeks out was like massive. And then she kind of had less volume leading into the marathon from 6 weeks. And I also looked back to when I ran a PB in London. A similar thing happened. I ran an ultra marathon about 6 weeks before, which was in theory loading up for me, and then cruising into the marathon, ran a PB. So Chicago came around. We trained as if we were going to reverse the last build block. Now, I would not recommend this for people that have never run a marathon before, because coming out of that recovery week, when your last long run is 27 kilometers-ish, and then going straight to 35 with all of the other volumes in the week slightly increasing, that's a lot. But if you've run multiple marathons before and your body knows what's going on, I would recommend a reverse last build block. And the taper is not massive in those 3 weeks before the official taper, but it's enough that the long run is 35 kilometers down to 30. The evidence physiologically, the adaptations that happen are usually, the golden window is about 8 to 4 weeks out from your race. 6 weeks, if you think about it. That's the sweet spot. And if you think about it some more, that's when you're freshest out of the recovery week as well. So things are less likely to go wrong. So we did experiment. We reverse build. Our biggest week was straight out of the recovery week. And guess what? 9-minute PBs for the both of us. We were blown away. And it wasn't just that. I'm not crediting just that. But all of the other things we've talked about in this video definitely played a part. Worth trying, because although it wasn't necessarily a mistake in the traditional sense, things didn't go super wrong. Things went super right when we switched this up. I'd also say that we learned a pretty harsh lesson when it came to our training and our racing between New York, Boston and Chicago. But I'm going to let Mary explain a little bit while she's mashing up avocado.
Yeah, we got it very wrong in Boston. We thought we were eating carbs, but looking back, we were absolutely not eating enough, just scraping by.
So while Mary's preparing the avo on toast, I'll tell you what we did that was different. Ready for the bready?
We got a bread knife.
I don't know. This is our new house, so we don't even know if we've got a bread knife as yet. Nope.
Not a bread knife, but
a knife. So this is the story. Like in Boston, we thought we would be carb loading if we just ate carbs, which sounds sensible, right? Because you eat carbs, you believe you're carb loading. But then we saw a bunch of people, Jonah Rosner, Eric Floberg, really talking about how seriously they were taking their carb load in the lead up to their marathons, and we were like, what's the difference between what we are doing and what they are doing? It was huge. So Mary, just an estimate, like our guesstimate, let's call it. How many carbs do you think we had in the Boston lead up on the day before, like in terms of grams of carbs?
oh my goodness, I can't even remember
It wasn't much.
what we ate.
What was our dinner? We remember that.
Vegetable chili, like a mixed bean chili with rice, and we shared a jacket potato. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Mary started reading more about it all. We kind of divide up the approach to marathon training, don't we? We kind of think, who can do what, who can focus on what. And Mary took on the whole nutrition side of it, started finding Featherston Nutrition and other nutrition kind of. Jonah Rosner was a great source as well, of people that were giving us advice about how many carbohydrates you actually have to eat. And it is astounding. So I'm going to take an estimate here that when we were carb loading for New York and Boston, carb loading, by the way, we probably were eating, I'm going to say 200 to 300 grams of carbs, would you say? Something like that on that last day. And when Mary looked into it, you can just see Winnie's ears here just like staring at our food. When Mary looked into it, if you do a 3-day carb load, it was 8 grams per kilogram of body weight is what you needed per day for those 3 days. So if you are a 100 kilogram human, you would need 800 grams of carbohydrates each day, roughly. I did the 2-day, a bit more aggressive kind of carb load, and you need 10 to 12 grams per kilogram. I'm 63, I was going to say I'm a 63 gram human. 63 kilograms, so therefore I needed at least 630 grams, if not 700. To put that in context, what we're eating here is probably 70 grams, not even that, I would say.
I'd say this is, with the apple and everything, probably 70.
70 grams. Needed to get 700 grams, 10 times this. And here's the point. We were getting nowhere near this. And it showed when we did get near this, because we just felt like no energy was running out in Chicago. We will 100% be employing this approach again when it comes to Berlin, right?
100%.
100 grams. And if you want to follow our journey to Berlin and maybe learn something about yourself and your running in the process, then you can do a lot worse than subscribing to the channel. And you're also hopefully going to find some value in this video that I've linked here. Ultimately, we want you to be the best runner you can be. So hopefully, we'll see you in the next video.